Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Practicing Connection podcast. I'm Coral. My co-host Jessica is here today as well. Today we'll be talking about building team cohesion with an outside-the-box practice called Hippopotamus Days. Jessica's going to be sharing that practice with us. Hey Jess, how are you today?
Hi, Coral. I'm doing pretty good. I have to confess, I can't wait to get back to the book I'm reading. Of course, I always enjoy hanging out on the podcast with you, but I just started reading novels again, and now I remember why my dad was always saying, get your nose out of that book and go outside to play. Because once I start a book that grabs my attention, I don't like to stop.
I totally get that. I was definitely the kid growing up where my folks would knock on my door at like 11:30 at night and I'd just have my nose buried in a book for like the last 2 hours. They'd be like, you need to go to bed. So, with the limited time I have these days as a mom to an almost 3-year-old and lots of life stuff, I unfortunately don't get to dig into those books for the long periods of time that don't exist right now, but looking forward to that season again soon, hopefully.
Did you keep a flashlight nearby so that you could put the covers over your head and turn a flashlight on?
Yeah. Oh, I sure did.
Yeah, me too.
I sure did.
I mean, I could have been doing a lot worse things, right? So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that we've got a lot of readers in our listenership. And, if y'all are reading anything or coming across anything in your life, we would love to hear about what is inspiring you or sparking different lines of trains of thought. So don't ever hesitate to share what's inspiring you at the moment with us. And you can click the send us a text message button at the top of this description of this episode. When you click that link, your text messaging app will open. You'll see a 7-digit number. The words do not remove. Just drop your message in there and click send afterwards. If you're listening on the computer, you can also just drop us an email to practicingconnection@oneop.org. So hopefully you're feeling inspired and you can let us know what's inspiring you right now. All right, so let's learn more about building team cohesion with Hippopotamus Days. I love the name of this practice, Jessica. I can't wait to learn more about it. Can you share more about this practice that you'll be sharing and also why you chose it?
yeah, I am actually super excited to share this practice with you. As you know, before we started recording, you and I were actually talking. This episode was going to be a completely different episode. And then I told you about Hippopotamus Days, and I'm like, I think I'd like to create a practice around this. So I call this practice Hippopotamus Day in honor of a group I was working with where their chosen code phrase to describe that they were, actually it was to describe several things. It was to describe that they were having a bad day, but that they're okay. That they promise to be present, but they may not be as communicative as usual. They might be off camera. This one phrase, Hippopotamus Day, kind of encapsulated a whole bunch of things. And so it was, I am having a hippopotamus day is what people would share when and if they felt the need to share that. And the result was everyone immediately understood because we all had decided on that phrase at the beginning of our time together. And we immediately understood that this person needed some space. And we also immediately understood that they were not checking out, that they were there and present with us. And that just because their camera was off or just because they were not maybe speaking up as much as usual, they were still with us and they were listening because it was sort of like a social contract that we had all agreed on. So at its core, this is about a shared language that is internal to your team to describe something that bridges understanding. So did your coworker nod at you instead of smiling and saying hello? Are they not speaking up during a meeting? Maybe they're having a hippopotamus day. So without some sort of shared language, we might assume our coworker is frustrated with us. In our minds, we might try to recall the last several interactions we had to see if we can pinpoint why they seem so frustrated. And we might even get frustrated in the process. So shared language can help us build understanding and simplify the complexities of life. I almost said simplify the complexities of work life, but actually it's kind of also about simplifying the complexities of life, right? We don't leave the rest of our lives, when we walk into our office. We are whole people, right? So for example, the group I was working with that used the phrase, I'm having a hippopotamus day, they used it in a way that helped describe several things at once. But beyond simplifying complex concepts, This shared language can also have the effect of building team cohesion. So I would even argue that using humor in your language choices also helps. Like, for example, hippopotamus is a funny word to say, and it's funny to hear in relation to describing a bad day.
I love that so much. And, when we can bring an angle of humor or just lightheartedness to something that might otherwise be a bit of a downer or kind of a, interaction, I
Mhm.
think that just helps bring the energy up and it just gives us a
Yes.
little bit of a reprieve. So awesome. Can you just tell us how to get started? Like, where would we even start to begin creating something like a hippopotamus day for our own teams?
Yeah, it's a pretty easy practice, but it will take a bit of discussion with your team, right? Just instituting a top down hippopotamus day decree is probably not going to work very well, right? Because this is about a shared language. So I recommend that you gain group consensus on the language that you choose. And I also recommend that your team creates their version of a hippopotamus day while you're creating group agreements or team norms if you don't already have them. If you already have them, just append it with a hippopotamus day. Uh, so, group agreements, in case you don't have them, they are essentially a set of guidelines that your team has agreed to for how you'll show up together as a team and for how you'll collaborate together. So, for this particular practice, let's focus on creating your team's own version of a hippopotamus day. So, first, during a team meeting, set an agenda item to discuss team communication. You could have it as the simple item on your agenda that just says team communication discussion. Number 2, introduce the concept of a hippopotamus day. Basically, that it is a shorthand communication to describe that a person is having an off day and to build understanding among the team. You might ask your team as you're trying to come up with what your own version of hippopotamus day means. Ask them, what does that mean for us? If someone is having an off day, do we want to define it as that they need space, or do we want to define it as that they need support? Can your team member who's having this off day show up with their camera off if you happen to be in a remote situation? What are the guidelines around what your hippopotamus day means to your team? And then step 3, choose your team language to describe the group norm. You can use hippopotamus day if you like. I have also heard capuchin monkey day. My friend and I use platypus as our word, and I've even heard whirligig. So I recommend making this phrase a little quirky and letting your team have fun with it. And then the last step is to use the word or phrase. If you're the leader, model it. Ask team members, is this a hippopotamus day? And then when they say yes, if they say yes, say, okay, I respect that, and respect what your team developed as their definition of hippopotamus day. So while you're getting used to it, as the leader, you might need to start to use it yourself. So what I've seen happen once a group grabs onto the concept and starts using it, I've seen that it builds togetherness and understanding when someone is feeling off. And that is really powerful.
I just love this. And I could even see an evolution for teams if they just love this and run with it to even have, perhaps a couple different flavors they could choose from, maybe like a flamingo day if they're
Yeah.
feeling like, just extra with it. But yeah, what a fun practice for something that, yeah, can sometimes be a little bit difficult when we're showing up as that whole person with a whole suite of emotions. So thanks for sharing that, Jess. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And I love what you just said with the flamingo day. Can you imagine, right, if someone mentions they're having a hippopotamus day and someone else is like, you know what? That's okay. I'm having a flamingo day. I got you. Like, I can help you out. Like, I can bring up the energy right now and not force you to bring up your energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. That's about it for this episode, but thanks again, Jess, for such a fun conversation. And thank you all for joining us. If you enjoyed this episode, or if you're even thinking about implementing it with your team, click the share button in your podcast app to share it with a friend or a colleague. And we will be back next week with a new practice. Until then, keep practicing.
Missing Connection podcast is a production of OneOp and is supported by the National Institute of Food and Agriculture, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the Office of Military Family Readiness Policy, U.S. Department of Defense, under award number 2023-48770-41333.